chat box, please. So welcome everybody. Thank you all for being here for today's webinar as we continue to celebrate Native Plant Month in Arkansas. This webinar is being recorded, and afterwards the recording will be uploaded to our YouTube channel. We're also having a silent auction as part of our celebration of Native Plant Month. So I want to encourage you to check out our online silent auction site, which is biddingowl.com. If you go to biddingowl.com/ANPS, you'll have a chance to win items such as botany books, Native Plant Society merchandise, native plants donated by Pine Ridge Gardens and Theo Witzel, as well as signed copies of the recently published Trees, Shrubs, and Woody Vines of Arkansas. This month, we're also hosting the Native Plant Adventure Challenge, where you can help raise money for the Native Plant Society by gathering sponsors who'll agree to donate to us for each native plant species you can identify throughout the month of May. For more information or to register, you can email me at amps.president@gmail.com. I'd also like to encourage you to consider joining the Arkansas Native Plant Society, and you can do this by going to our website, anps.org/join. You can also check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/Arkansas Native Plant Society, or you're always welcome to email me for more information. Again, that's amps.president@gmail.com. I want to give a brief plug for the upcoming webinars we have this Saturday, May 15th at 2 o'clock. Eric Sundell is going to give a talk called The Love Life of Ferns. And then the following Saturday, May 22nd at 1 p.m., Theo Witzel is going to give a presentation on Arkansas's grasslands, natural history and conservation. And that will be followed at 3 p.m. that same day by Ask the Experts, a Q&A panel with Jennifer Ogle, Eric Sundell, and Theo Witzel. So if you have any questions.
The X.
All right, somebody's microphone is not muted. I'm gonna go ahead and mute you. All right. All right, so if you have any questions for Jennifer Ogle, Eric Sundell, or Theo Witzel, then you can send them to me in advance, or you can wait and ask them during the Q&A panel on May 22nd. Our speaker today is Jay Justice. Jay became enthralled with mushrooms and fungi while pursuing his graduate degree many years ago. In 1980, Jay joined the North American Mycorrhizal Association, an organization in which he served as the vice president for many years. And in 1982, he was instrumental in forming the Arkansas Mycorrhizal Society. Jay is currently one of the designated chief mycologists for the Missouri Mycorrhizal Society and a scientific advisor for both the Cumberland Mycorrhizal Society as well as the Arkansas Mycorrhizal Society. Jay is also a co-author of Amanitas of North America, which was published in June of 2020. Today, Jay will be giving a presentation called Who's on Top? An overview of the known associations between plants and fungi. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jay.
Okay.
Thank
you,
Jay.
Eric. Can you hear me?
Can hear you just fine.
Good deal. Okay, I want to thank, let me clear my voice. I want to thank Eric for inviting me to give this presentation. This is a totally new presentation. Usually my presentations are heavy on mushroom taxonomy, but I enjoy doing research. I enjoy developing new programs, so I thought this would be kind of interesting. So let's start. Let's start it. Uh-oh. Oh boy. Let's see. It's not. There we go. Sorry about that, folks. Okay. So today I'm going to show you some examples of known interactions involving members of the kingdom Plantae and fungi. So after reviewing each type of interaction, a determination will be made in order to assess if one organism is taking more from the other organism than it is contributing to the interaction between the two organisms. So a tally of these determinations will be offered, and at the end of the presentation, each of you should be able to decide for yourself which group of organisms, plants or fungi, dominate in the interactions we're going to take a look at. All right, just a brief intro of kingdom fungi usually is divided into 7 or 8 different phyla, and we'll be looking at members of 3 of these phyla in the talk today, being Ascomycota, Mycota, and the Mycota. And just for your information, members of the subkingdom Dicaria, composed of members of the phyla Ascomycota and Mycota, compose what is called the poster children, or what I call the macrofungi of this kingdom. All right, this is what I'm going to cover today. We're going to look at the obvious ones, fungi as plant pathogens, rust, smuts, galls, and as such. We're going to look at lichens, which is a mutualistic relationship between plants and fungi. We're going to look at mycorrhizal relationships. We're going to look at endophytic fungi, and we're going to look at some of the plants that cheat fungi and steal their food. And then at the end, we're going to look at a plant that mimics a fungus and a fungus that mimics a plant. All right, so first, we're going to look at the obvious. We're going to look at rust, which are known pathogens on plants. So they're considered the most harmful fungi pathogenic to commercial crops, cultivated plants, and trees. Examples are wheat stem, soybean rust, and coffee rust are examples of notoriously damaging threats to economically important crops. Currently, it's estimated there are about 7,000 species contained in about 168 genera of fungal rust, more than half which belong to the genus Puccinia. All rust are obligate parasites, meaning they require a living host to complete their life cycles. They generally do not kill their host plants, but can severely reduce their growth and the yield of agricultural crops. And rust can produce up to 5 different types of spores from corresponding fruiting body types during their life cycles, depending on the species. So I've rated this one for rust. Plants really get nothing out of the relationship, so it's all on the side of the fungus. The fungus is on top. And here's some examples of some rust, 2 of them that require 2 different hosts. We have the cedar apple rust, which is Gymnosporangium juniperi virginiana, and it requires 2 hosts. Usually the one on the left is one of the spores. It forms 2 different kinds of spores, I think. And the one on the left you'll see is the spores that are formed, in this case, on hawthorn. It's not just limited to apple trees, but relative of apple trees. So this is what it looks like at one point. And then what you see in the spring, usually these come out in April in Arkansas, you see these galls with these gelatinous little arms, tentacles or arms that come out on cedar trees. People see them every year, and you know they ask questions. The cooperative extension services and other places, they can get information. They ask, what the heck, is on my cedar tree? So that's what they look like there. They were, how should I say this? They were common earlier, usually about the month of April, so they may start to be waning. So we have that. They are detrimental to the apple tree or to the fruit tree they're growing on. They can severely damage it and eventually kill it. On the cedar tree, even though they form these really spectacular galls, they really don't do much to the cedar tree. They're not harming it as best I can tell. Okay, another one example of a rust on a tree is called the pine oak or pine gall rust. And they're typified as appearing as round to oblong tumor-like galls forming on the branches and trunks of 2 to 3 needle pine trees. These galls can result in poor branch growth. They can kill the branch that they're growing on, the death of the branches, or death of young pine trees. Well-established pine trees may be disfigured, but their overall health is not affected. Maybe you have seen some of these. The picture on the right shows that the gall that it forms on the pine tree. Lots of spores there you can see. The one on the left is showing the fungus as it appears on oak leaves. Not as spectacular as the one on the right, but it does its damage on the pine trees. So that's another example of a rust. Okay, smuts Let me see if I can get rid of this. There we go. Okay, smuts are known to be pathogenic on cereal and other agricultural crops, and most notably affect members of the grass family and sedges. Economically important host includes maize, barley, wheat, oat, sugarcane, and forage grasses. They eventually hijack the plant's reproductive systems, forming galls, which darken and burst, releasing fungal spores, which infect other plants nearby. Currently, it's estimated there are about 1,640 species of smuts worldwide. So again, the tally for the smuts plant interaction is the fungus is on top. The plant doesn't get any benefit from the fungus being on it, and the plant is zero. The main difference, well, one big difference between rust and smuts is smuts just form one type of spore, the sexual spore. In rust, they can form up to 5 different kinds of spores. Some of them asexual, and I think finally a sexual spore they form. Let's see if I can, this thing doesn't seem to be working for some reason. Huh. Okay, okay, there we go. So 2 examples of some rust that grow on crops are the sugarcane, 2 examples of smuts that grow on commercial crops are the sugarcane smut, which is shown here. You can see it's attacked some of the blades of the sugarcane, and it's forming the spores. The apparently, from what I've recently read, the sugarcane smut is not a big problem in the United States, in the southern United States where sugarcane is grown. And the best defense against it seems to be the using strains of the sugarcane that are resistant to the smut. So that seems to be the best way to deal with it, is just buy new strains that are known to be resistant to the sugarcane smut. Okay, another example of one is called the corn smut. And according to what I read recently, corn smut does not really affect the value from harvesting the corn that it's infecting. And because the corn smut does not cause adverse health effects, in some cultures, immature smut galls are eaten as a delicacy, believe it or not. Young corn plants are purposely scarred to increase infection by the common smut spores. The galls are harvested while they are whitish gray before they turn black. So you want to get them before the spores completely develop or mature. And when harvested from sweet corn, the smut fungus has a sweet flavor from the corn that it's been feeding on. And after harvesting, the galls are then cooked until they turn black and are reported to have an earthy flavor to them. So in Mexico, this delicacy is called huitlacoche, or maize truffles. In the US, Mexican restaurants serve it as corn truffle. So sometime, I guess marketing can help promote a product that people might not eat otherwise. So here's some pictures from the internet showing corn smut on corn. And as you see, the spores come in, they cause the kernels to greatly enlarge, but it is sold as a commercial product. I took a eco-myco trip to Mexico in 1997. And while we were down there, they served us corn smut soup, which was very good. I couldn't really taste much of the fungus inside the soup. It tasted more like corn soup, but you know, it was a good experience to have. So just to let you know that corn smut can be eaten. All right, Exobasidiaceae, that's a family in the phyla Basidiomycota. It's known to contain 5 genera and 56 species, which have a widespread distribution, especially in temperate areas. And there are plant pathogens that grow on the leaves of these plants, especially those in the family Ericaceae. They form a naked hymenium on their host surface and induce hypertrophy in their host, causing the formation of misshapen galls or blisters, which are often colored white or pink. You'll see these a lot of time on rhododendrons and azalea plants like that. So it forces the plant material to, I guess, malform, and it takes over and it forms these galls like that. So again, members in this group, the plants get nothing out of it. Their flowers are sometimes compromised. They can't make their pollen for their flowers. So the fungus is on top. Fungus 1, plant 0 in examples of that. Okay, who doesn't like the lichens? We see them a lot out in the woods. They grow on branches, sometimes some are on ground. So traditionally lichens, I made the comment, lichens were some of the first land dwelling organisms that helped life make the land live.
Jay, I think you're.
So I can move this thing up. Great.
There you go.
Bacteria
All right, you're
and
back.
sometimes a yeast. What's that?
Oh, it looked like you had frozen there for a little bit. Sounds like you're back.
Sorry. Yeah, it says my connection is unstable. Okay, am I back? Yeah, just let me know if that happens again. Can you hear me now?
Yep, you're good. Good to go.
Good, okay. So I was saying about lichens, they're composite organisms composed of algae or cyanobacteria living in close association with a hyphae of various but limited kinds of fungi. Mostly members of the phyla Ascomycota, but a few are associated with the Basidiomycota, resulting in what most people call a mutualistic or symbiotic relationship. As a result of this relationship, lichens have different properties from those entities that compose them. Normally, the fungal partners cannot live without his plant partner, but the algae are often capable of living independently in water or on moist soils. Lichens can be found in many colors, some very bright, sizes and forms. Okay. Lichens are placed into 4 different major types based on their gross morphological forms. What I call fructicose or fructicose is one, foliose, crustose, just lying flat on the surface, and a 4th one, which sometimes is viewed as a subset of the crustode, is leprose, which looks like a powder-like appearance on the surface where it is growing. So in this case, where the tally for the fungal plant interactions in lichens is 1-to-1. Both organisms get something from the association with one another. They become a 3rd type of organism, and by combining with the combination of the algae and the fungus. Here's some examples that I found off the internet. We have a crustose lichen on the left. We have a dust lichen, a type of leprose lichen on the right, which looks like a powder. Somebody put a powder on rock. And what people notice maybe more often, a foliose lichen on the left, growing on probably a branch of a tree, and certainly a fructicose lichen on the right there. Now, what's interesting is that in the past few years, for years and years, scientists thought that lichens were only composed of 2 organisms, that being an algae or cyanobacteria and a fungus. And the discovery was made that there, in many cases, there's a 3rd component in them. It's a Basidiomycota yeast. And what's interesting is that the example of one lichen, 2 species in the same genus of lichen, Bryoria, is one of them produces a toxic substance known as vulpinic acid, while the other one makes up of the same fungus and algae is dark brown and produces no such acid. So what they found out is that the yeast component, the yeast partner inside the the organism, that was the fungus that was making the volcanic acid. So just an interesting thing. Not all of the lichens do contain yeast, but those that contain them, they make some interesting chemicals and maybe keep the lichens from being eaten. They give them some extra protection. All right. So I mentioned the fact that most lichens partner with a fungus in the phyla Ascomycota. There are a few that partner with fungi in the Basidiomycota. And here's one here. It's a little coral fungus. It's called Multiclevula Mucido. You will only find it growing on moss-covered, decorticated logs usually. And this is what it looks like. They're all pointed in one direction because they point the tip of their stalks toward light. So that's what they're doing there. Is they're all pointed in some direction. If we took them in the lab and put them in a container or something, put a light on the other side, they would probably they should turn toward the light on the other side. So they're kind of small, only up to about 1.5 centimeters. And I say it's always associated with green algae on decorticated logs. So they're kind of fun. I don't see them very often, but they're fun to find. And the other one is Lichen omphalia, which is both a basidio-lichen and a gill mushroom. And you see what the fruiting bodies of that looks like. So there's a lichen buried somewhere in that moss, and that's what's producing the fruiting bodies eventually right there. So just to let you know that there are a few lichens that contain the fungus that is partnered with is a member of the Basidiomycota. Okay, let me see if I can get rid of that. Okay. We're going to look at another type of association between fungi and plants. These are called the Mycorrhizal Association. Mycorrhizal fungi are classified into two types based on the location of the fungal hyphae in relation to the root tissue of the plant. They are known to benefit 80 to 90% of all plant species. First ones we'll look at fall into the category of what we call Endomycorrhizae Fungi, which is the largest group of fungi that are mycorrhizal with plants. They benefit a majority of the plants in the world. They produce hyphae that extend into the cell membrane of the cortex roots and form vesicles. And they can be further divided into arbuscular mycorrhizae, endomycorrhizae. Okay, I'm sorry, endomycorrhizae. This is the most common type. Ericoid endomycorrhizae, which include arbutoid endomycorrhizae and monotropoid endomycorrhizae. And some of you are certainly familiar with the endomycorrhizae that assist orchids when they first come out. They can't make their own food, so the fungi assist them. So basically, we have endomycorrhizae fungi and we have ectomycorrhizae fungi. Main difference is in endomycorrhizae fungi, they actually penetrate inside the plant cells. I think I've got a representation pictorially in the next one. Okay, I'll show you in a few minutes, but just remember endo means inside plant cell wall and ecto means outside. Now, the benefits that the plant gets from these associations of mycorrhizae is that the fungi will facilitate the exchange of nutrients such as inorganic phosphorus, minerals, or organic nitrogen between the host plant and the soil. So the mycelium of the fungus will pick up the nutrients inside the soil and it will transfer them to the plants. And they also increase the surface area of the plant root system, and this can assist in picking up moisture in the environment. So the plants that have the the mycorrhizae fungi that are growing around them sometimes have an advantage over plants lacking this symbiotic relationship, and allow them to outcompete other plants that don't have the mycorrhizae associated with them for nutrients. And of course, nothing hardly ever comes free. So in exchange for what the fungi does in the relationship, they pull off or accept some carbon, some in the form of carbohydrates, maybe sugars, maybe something else from the plants, and that keeps them happy and they can grow. I talked to mycologist a couple of weekends ago. He's done some work in this area, and he was telling me that even though in nature the mycorrhizal fungi are going to be in the soil, the plant still has some kind of controlled somewhat of accepting which mycorrhizae fungi that it will accept. So you see in nature, sometimes you see the phenomenon as a tree ages, some fruiting bodies of mushroom, the macrofungi, what we traditionally call mushrooms, sometimes they will totally disappear and others will show up in their place. So what may be happening is that the tree has sort of cut off the food supply to some of the fungi, and they're allowing others, which may be giving them a higher percentage of minerals or nitrogen, and allowing them to accept the carbon, the sugars from them. So apparently the plants do have some kind of control over which fungi they want to accept mycorrhizal relationships with. So this is another example of a plant fungus interaction where both parties benefit from being associated with each other. So one is not on top, but they're both equal partners. Here's that example, that picture I want to show you, that image of showing this is all endomycorrhizal fungi, and you can see that the hyphae on the outside of the root, it actually penetrates in, it goes into the plant cells, it ruptures the cell wall and goes inside, and that's where the connection is made, that the nutrients go inside the plant and then the carbon is siphoned off or accepted or whatever and goes to the fungi. Okay. Ericoid Endomycorrhizae, they differ in where they are found, but also in the structure. So instead of forming the arbusculars, in the fungi forms loose network hyphae on the surface and the hyphal coils inside the fine root hairs of the plants. This is more closely in line with what we will look at in a minute, called ectomycorrhizae fungi. And what I found was that the root volume can be up to 80% fungal tissue, and it's through these coils that are inside the root that the nutrient exchange occurs. And associated plants are members of the Ericaceae, such as Erica and Vaccinium, excuse me. And okay, it just says can actually be found free living, the fungi, but the symbiotic relationship between the fungi and plant is thought to be more beneficial to both species. Arbutoid mycorrhizae are found in plants such as Arctostaphylos and Arbutus. And this is more similar to the ectomycorrhizal associations. They form a fungal sheath. And it says because the sheath can be formed to also function as a place to store excess nutrients at times when nutrient levels are low, the fungus can release the stored nutrients into the plant. And the main difference between this type of mycorrhizae that arbutoid fungus forms and ectomycorrhizal fungi, the hyphae of this type of fungi do, in fact, they still penetrate the outer cortical cells of the plant root. And they also form corals within the cells, and that permits the transfer of the nutrients from the fungi to the plant. Let me see. Sorry about that. And of course, many of you are familiar with the mycorrhizae that's essential for the orchids to survive after the seed is germinated. And it says in many cases, orchid seeds will not begin to germinate until they have formed an association with the mycorrhizal fungi. So that's why I guess it's sometimes hard to germinate or get orchids to grow, is because the seeds won't germinate until they sense that there's a friendly mycorrhizal fungus waiting out there. So as the orchids mature, the seeds tend to rely less on the mycorrhizae for nutrients, but still acquire phosphorus and nitrogen through the association. All right, so we're going to move on from Endomycorrhizae fungi to Ectomycorrhizae fungi. And again, the main difference is that in Ectomycorrhizae fungi, the hyphae never penetrates the cells of the plants. They're always on the outside. They are thought to provide some of the same benefits to the plant partners that fungi forming endomycorrhizae do, in that they provide the plants with essential minerals like phosphorus, nitrogen, and again, increase the surface areas of the plant root system. And they are very important, even though the majority of the type of mycorrhizae plant associations are the endo type, that they penetrate the cells of the plants. Ectos are very important because they form this relationship with the trees, with all our forest trees, if you want to call them higher plants, or at least larger plants. So this is why that they are so important. And one benefit is that we do get some exquisite edible fungi from that are associated with the trees. I'll show you a picture of those in a few minutes. So here's some images showing what the ectomycorrhizal fungi looks like. They dig up the roots of the plant, they wash them carefully, and you can see this fuzzy stuff. That's the mycelium of the fungus. You can see on the picture on the left that has greatly increased the surface area of the rootlets. And that's what it does, it can pick up moisture more easily, so it can help in drought conditions. But this is what they look like on the plants, by the way, ectomycorrhizae fungi. Okay, it's hard for me to give a presentation and not show some images of some macro fungi. So this opportunity being no different, I did want to show you one of the benefits of the ectomycorrhizal fungi, the Ectomycorrhizal Association with the trees, is that we do get some fine and edible fungi that people like to eat. I just threw some prices out there that I found a couple of years ago, just to let you know how sometimes these are expensive. The chanterelles up in the upper right-hand corner, they're very common in Arkansas. We'll see some by June and July. We can pick our own out in our woods. The pecan truffle is a truffle native to North America. It's associated with the native pecan trees. The people in Georgia were picking them for a while, and they had a limited distribution, limited marketing of them around the Atlanta area. I think that's sort of fallen by the wayside. It was probably a novelty at first, but I'm not sure how widespread it is now. The lobster mushroom in the middle is not called the lobster mushroom because it's tastes like lobster, but because of the red color. Black trumpets at the lower right are examples of chanterelles also. They're called black chanterelles. We will find those pretty soon. So just wanted to show you those. One more thing, here's some choice edible mushrooms that are ectomycorrhizal on the West Coast. One of them is called the king bolete or porcini. It's a member of the genus Bolitus, and it can go for about $40 a pound fresh. And then we have one over here called the white Matsutaki mushroom. The prize Matsutaki mushroom is found in Japan, and it's very, very expensive. But on the West Coast, they have one they call the white Matsutaki. They harvest them in the wild since they can't be grown commercially. They harvest them, then they sell them. Sometimes they can go about $54 a pound. They're fall mushrooms, and their aroma is said to be a combination of cinnamon red hots and dirty socks. I mean, how could you not be interested in eating a mushroom that could be described with those aromas to it? Okay. Another interesting aspect of ectomycorrhizal fungi, they are the entities behind the wood wide web. That's hard to say because, of course, I want to say World Wide Web, but this is the wood wide web. So what that consists of, it's been shown that trees of different species in a forest can actually share nutrients through being connected to the same mycelium colony of an ectomycorrhizal fungus. So once again, the tally for the fungi plant interactions in all the types of mycorrhizae is equal plane. The fungus gets something out of the relationship and the plants do. Here's a image showing the connection supporting the wood wide web concept. On the left, we have a European beech tree right here. You can see the fungus on the left is a saprobic fungus. It doesn't form ectomycorrhizal connection. So it's growing, the mycelium is kind of shallow. It's growing up on the surface of the soil, probably eating debris, wood debris, grass, or whatever. It's not interested at all in forming a connection with the roots of the trees. But in the middle here, we have an ectomycorrhizal fungus, and the fruiting body is coming up through the soil, but you can see that the mycelium is connected to the rootlets of both trees. So what happens is that it was shown through about a 5-year experiment that they did with different isotopes of carbon. They showed that if one tree received the application of the carbon, that another tree could pick it up. And the only reason, the way they surmised that was happening is that the fungus was acting as the middleman. It was passing along the carbon. And it's also been shown that taller trees can also pass along carbon to the smaller trees to help them get a head start, or maybe help them out to their photosynthetic ability has increased enough where they can make sufficient food for themselves. So that is called the wood wide web. Okay, so one final type of mycorrhizal associations to talk about, and this is the one that many mycologists don't enjoy talking about too often. You'll see the reason why in a few minutes. There's a group of plants known as the Mycoheterotrophs, which can also be called the mycorrhizal cheaters. The full or obligate Mycoheterotrophs are those plants that are lacking in chlorophyll. Over 400 known species distributed in 87 genera are known, or somewhat lacking a functional photosystem, and they have to obtain all their food from the fungi that it parasitizes. Then we also have a group that are called partial or facultative mycoheterotrophs. They are capable of photosynthesis, but parasitize fungi is a supplementary food supply. So here we go. Mycoheterotrophs. Most of the plants in that group can be viewed as ultimately being an epiparasite, since they take food from the fungi, but the fungi get their food from a vascular plant. And then there's a special form of Mycoheterotrophic Association, which appears to be a chimera between the historical parasitism of a parasitic plants and mycoheterotrophy. It's observed in this species right here, the only mycoheterotrophic gymnosperm that's known. So this is the one example that I found where the plants are on top. They steal food from the fungus. So if any of you other smart people out there, you botanists that I know, if you think of another example, I'll give you my email at the end of the presentation. Please let me know. But the fungus loses on this side because it's part of its food's being taken away. Here's a good example that many of you know, the Monotropha example, the ghost plant right here. It has been shown to take nutrients from the mycelia of Russula and Lactarius species, which are mushrooms in the Basidiomycota, by the way, fairly common in Arkansas. And I guess all is not lost with the myco-heterotrophs because they can be used as indicator organisms. So I showed you earlier that picture of the white Matsutaki that they pick commercially out in the Pacific Northwest. Here is a myco-heterotroph plant right here, Allotropa species, that when the Matsutaki hunters see this in the woods, they realize, usually in the spring or summer, they realize they should come back in the fall and look for the Matsutaki because it's growing on the mycelium of the Matsutaki. Okay, endophytic fungi, that's those fungi that are known to colonize the internal tissues of living plants without causing any immediate overt negative effects, or those fungi which invade the tissues of living plants, but don't result in any infections that show symptoms of. Thus they failed to induce any symptoms or diseases into the plant, but they're living inside them. Studies have suggested that the large number of secondary metabolites as endophytic fungi produce, including alkaloids, flavonoids, steroids, terpenoids, peptides, polyketones, quinols, phenols, and even some chlorinated compounds, many of which are biologically active, can offer some protection from the plants containing the endophytic fungi from being eaten by herbivores. So they deter insects and certain mammals from eating the plants. They're fairly common in the grasses, in the group of grasses. So again, this is a wash, so to speak. The fungus gets something from the organism, probably food, carbohydrates, and the plants don't seem to suffer from the association. Okay, two final things I wanted to show you is that this is really not too surprising when you consider what all fungi do, but here is a example of a fungus that takes over a yellow-eyed grass, and it takes over the flesh, and it produces a material that looks like the flowers on top of the grass. So of course the bright colors and everything, they attract the insects. The insects come in thinking they'll get some of the nectar or whatever, but wind up just getting the spores on their legs and everything. They fly off and maybe start a new colony or contaminate another plant like that. And on the flip side of that, there is actually, see if I can get it to stick. I don't know what's going on. Here we go. There is an actual plant, a vine that grows in Central America, whose flower mimics a mushroom. And here we have it right here. That we have. This is the vine showing the flowers right here. And here's a close-up of the flower. And if you look inside, you can see a form that looks like a mushroom. What they're doing is they're taking on that shape and they're hoping to attract flies that want to lay their eggs on the mushroom so the larvae can grow inside. So we've got two sides of an interesting coin. A fungus that takes on the appearance of a flowering plant to attract insects, and then a plant that takes on the appearance of a mushroom to attract insects that will come in and pollinate, pick up the pollen from the plant and take it to a different location. Here's my email address if you want to get in touch with me, and I thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, Jay.
Thank you.
Great presentation. I liked it. If anyone has any questions, go ahead and enter them into the chat now. Haven't seen anything in there yet. Let's see. Sarah Gurk says, fascinating presentation. She really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Sarah.
Give people a chance to type here.
Yeah.
See. Sarah's wondering if she can get a copy of the slides. She said she wasn't able to type fast enough.
Yeah, I don't know how big. I don't think I could send it by email. Guess I'd have to reduce it. Yeah, I don't mind sharing them. Just a matter of how to get them to her, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess I can. What's I mean, there's some ways to, if it's bigger than 15 megs, there's actually, I could break it into parts or something, I guess. And
that's a
send
possibility. Yeah. Send it in
Yes.
multiple emails.
Yeah.
Another thing is, yeah, we do plan to put this on our YouTube channel. So if, you know, if anybody wants to go back through it and rewatch it, they'll have an opportunity to do that as well.
Okay.
Grace is asking, can you speak about imposter fungi?
Can she give me an example? I mean, the last one I showed was, to me, the vine in Central America was a type of imposter fungus that looks like a fungus. Can she give me an example of what she considers to be imposter fungi?
She says morels that are poisonous.
False morels. Yes, we have them. We have two predominant species in Arkansas. They're in the genus Gyromitra, Gyromitra, and the Caroliniana, Gyromitra caroliniana is predominant false morels that we have in Arkansas. They usually come out about a month or so before the true morels. They're larger in size and they persist a little bit longer because of their size. But yeah, we have two species. Some in other parts of North America are known to be poisonous. They produce a compound that breaks down into monomethylhydrazine, and that can destroy the liver. So there are species in North America that have been shown to be poisonous to humans and other mammals. If you have specific questions or something, my email was out there. It's justice@aristotle.net. You can just email me and I'll try to answer any other specific questions.
Cleo is wondering about the study with the isotope markers showing the trees exchanging nutrients. Was that a study done by Suzanne Simmerd?
I think I don't know if she was involved with the original project or not, but yeah, she's written about it somewhat also. You can go on the web and, go on the internet and find information about it. I just read a lot and then try to condense it down into what I wanted to present today. So, but yeah, you should be able to find out information. But yeah, she's written an interesting book. Yeah, she's from Australia. Yeah, I like her writings. Yeah.
Sarah has another question. Could you explain the lichen mushroom relationship again?
Well, my understanding is, really wouldn't call it a mushroom, but it's a algae, and traditionally it was viewed as being an algae in a mutualistic association or relationship with a member of the Ascomycota. And traditionally, the fungus provides a form of a structure for the organism, and then in return, it gets some carbohydrates from the algae. The algae provides the food, the fungus provides the structure or the the organisms, is my understanding. I don't really know a lot about it except the little bit that I've read. I don't really study lichens. It's a whole world unto itself, and like I say, I haven't really studied them that much. Every once in a while, when depending on the presentation I give, I mention them.
It looks like Cleo typed another comment saying recommending Finding the Mother Tree by Suzanne Simard.
Ah, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
And Allison is wondering, what are puffballs, the big white ones?
Well, they're members of the Basidiomycota. They come from a mycelial colony growing in the ground. They're decomposers. They're saprobic. They're not associated with trees. They bear their spores internally. The flesh, when they first occur, the flesh is usually pure white inside, and it's formed of two different kinds of hyphae. Part of them are called Capillicium hyphae, the others are the hyphae that produces the spores. So many times when the spores are mature, if you compress a puffball, especially those in the genus Lycoperdon, if you compress them down, then the spores will come out through a hole on the top. But once you release the pressure, they will return to their original form, sort of like a sponge. Think of them maybe as a sponge that are heavily impregnated with spores. You can push down on them, the spores shoot up or go up in the air, but once you release the pressure, they return to their original form. That's the way they operate. Usually in nature, for Lycoperdon, the raindrops will be the agent that forces the spores out of the top of the spherical fruiting body. The big white ones are a different genus, and usually the outer covering of them will disintegrate, but spores are contained with, it's the same type of material. It's a sponge-like matrix, I guess I should say, that the spores are contained within. So that's why you can get repeated spore releases if you kick them, or they go across the lawns or whatever. They'll continue to disseminate the spores as they're released from that matrix.
Looks like Cleo recommended another book. Robin Wall Kimmerer wrote a book called Gathering Moss that also discusses lichens.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
And here we just also had some general comments about just people really enjoying the presentation. Thought it was very interesting. It's like Shannon Chamberlain said that they especially like the photos and the drawings. Great presentation from Tracy Hale. Shayna Sessler says, thank you. That was very interesting. And let's see. Going through here. Somebody else, David Darby says, thank you for a semester's worth of information in 1 hour. Gwen says, thank you. Very interesting presentation. And Jane Schultz, fascinating program. Thank you. And then Cleo again, thank you for a wonderfully informative talk. So we do appreciate you sharing your knowledge and wisdom with us. I've heard so many great things about your knowledge of mycology, especially here in Arkansas, and I've had the opportunity to attend some of your events and hikes before, and I've always been blown away with the amount of knowledge that you bring on the mushroom world and the fungus world. So we really do appreciate you putting this presentation together for us and delivering it for us here today. So,
thank you. Appreciate it.
I want to thank everyone again for being here with us. Again, a recording of this webinar will be uploaded to our YouTube channel, so check that out later on to see. I'll usually try to get those up there pretty quick. Just give a quick plug. The next webinar is on Saturday, May 15th at 2 p.m. Eric Sundell will be giving a talk on the love life of ferns. So another spore-producing plant this time, though. So you can find out more information about the Arkansas Native Plant Society on our website, amps.org. I encourage you to go in there and join our organization. Hopefully we'll be able to start having these meetings in person again, but we're doing it virtually this year just because of the pandemic, and wanting to keep our members safe. So check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/Arkansas Native Plant Society. And of course, you can always reach out to me, amps.president@gmail.com. And just to give Jay's email address again one more time, I believe it's Justice, JUSTICE @aristotle.net. Is that correct?
Yes, that
All
is.
right.
Yep. All right.
Thank you all. Thank you, Jay. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Eric. Thanks.